Spartans. You know why you are here.
Yes!
You know what you leave behind.
Yes!
Then let us remind them who we are.
My king, the Medes, they are falling back. Then send the Immortals. Send the Immortals.
The year is 480 BCE, and you are standing at Thermopylae. This narrow pass is the only road through these mountains. Behind you, 7,000 Greek soldiers are holding their breath. That dust cloud rising on the horizon is not weather, but 300,000 men marching this way. The man standing beside you has trained for this moment since he was 7 years old, and so have you. Every city that refused this army has already burned to the ground. And this one is not here to negotiate. You look at what is coming, and you do not move. The shields lock together, and the spears come forward as the pass seal shut. 300,000 men are about to funnel through a gap, barely 30 meters wide. Leonidas looks down the line one final time and says nothing at all.
Spartans, eat well. Tonight we dine in the place that awaits all brave men.
To understand the force now filling that horizon, you have to understand the empire behind it. By 480 BCE, the Persian Empire had grown into the largest the world had ever seen, stretching from Egypt to the edge of India. Xerxes inherited that empire from his father and grandfather, and he came to Greece not to negotiate, but to finish what they had already started. Every city Xerxes approached received the same demand for earth and water in exchange for staying alive, and most cities surrendered before a single soldier arrived.
Earth and water. The King of Kings requires your submission. Give it now, and your city survives.
The cities that refused still lie in ruins today because Xerxes left no warnings, only examples for the ones that came after. Standing against that machine were 300 men built for exactly this moment. Spartan boys entered military training at the age of 7 and did not leave it until they became grown men. A Spartan phalanx was never just brave men standing together, but one single organism trained for years to move and hold and kill as a unit. Leonidas had ruled as king for years and knew these men the way a craftsman knows his own tools. He chose all 300 himself because each man had a son to carry his name forward.
Every man here has a son. Every name here continues. That is all I needed to know about each of you.
Leonidas had already asked what that choice might cost him before he made it. While Xerxes sent his demands ahead into Greece, Leonidas requested his own to the oracle at Delphi. The oracle's answer was exact. Either Sparta would fall, or a Spartan king would die. Leonidas read those words alone and told no one. Then chose his 300 and marched. He walked the line once without a word, and 300 men who had been told they were chosen understood exactly what that meant.
Your father was at Plataea. I served beside him. You will not disappoint him.
With his 300 chosen and the prophecy accepted, Leonidas turned to the only advantage he had left, the ground itself. Thermopylae means the hot gates, named for the sulfur springs nearby. At its narrowest point, the pass measured under 15 meters wide, and inside that gap, none of the enemy's numbers or cavalry or archers meant anything at all. Leonidas spent the first days rebuilding the old stone wall across the pass, so that when the enemy arrived, they would meet one narrow killing ground with 7,000 Greeks waiting at the end of it.
They will come one at a time through this gap. That is the only way through, and we will be standing right here.
That plan faced its first test within a day of the wall going up. The first wave sent against the pass was the Medes, seasoned fighters who outnumbered the Greeks many times over. They entered the pass by the thousands and came back out in hundreds. The phalanx never fought the way other armies did because frontline men rotated out before they tired and fresh men stepped in behind them without the wall ever weakening. So the attackers never once faced a tired man. Only a fresh one, waiting every time they pushed forward.
Rotate! Back! Second rank, hold your shields! Rotate now!
Xerxes reportedly rose from his throne 3 times watching that first assault collapse, and when he sent in his elite guard next, the Spartans cut them down with the same efficiency as before them. Xerxes still had thousands of men left to spend, and he spent them again the next morning. The route did not change, as the rotation held, and the wall held, and the largest army on Earth still could not advance 15 meters. Leonidas already understood what Xerxes had not yet accepted, that 7,000 men could never hold this pass forever, and the real question was only how long that holding was worth.
2 days, my immortals, and that wall is still standing. Someone tell me how.
2 days of failure convinced Xerxes to look for another way through, and that same night, word of one reached him. A local shepherd walked into the enemy camp and asked to speak with the king. He knew of a mountain track that circled the pass entirely and came out behind the Greek position, one the Greeks had left unguarded. And he traded that knowledge for money and protection.
This path goes above the pass and comes out behind them. They do not know I am here telling you this.
Xerxes did not wait to use what he had been given. The elite guard set out along that mountain path the same night, moving single file through the darkness for hours. And although Greek scouts spotted them just before dawn and ran to give warning, the Greek position would be surrounded from both directions by morning. Leonidas heard the warning and called his commanders together at once, then sent most of the allied Greeks away while the road out was still open. He kept only his 300 Spartans along with the Thespians and Thebans, who refused to leave, and every man who stayed had been told exactly what was coming and asked to leave with no one.
Spartans, those who wish to eat dinner alive have gone. Tonight, we dine somewhere better, with me.
Dawn arrived, and with it came the battle none of them would walk away from. It stretched on for hours as spears broke and then swords broke, until the last of them were fighting with their bare hands against wave after wave. Leonidas fell in that fight. And though 10 separate assaults were sent to recover his body, the Spartans held their ground over him until the last man among them fell too. The pass was lost, but what it bought was not. The stand at Thermopylae did not stop the invasion, and the army marched on to burn the city of Athens to the ground. But the 3 days it cost them bought the Greek fleet time to prepare at Salamis, where the enemy navy was destroyed and the invasion lost its ability to resupply. 300 Spartans held a pass for 3 days, and those 3 days gave the Greek fleet the time it needed to gather, take position and fight. At Salamis, the invasion finally broke, and historians are still measuring what that trade was truly worth. Xerxes watched his own fleet burn from a hillside throne built to see his victory, then returned home with a fraction of the army he had brought, and he never came back to Greece again. The monument at Thermopylae still carries an ancient epitaph written not long after the battle, one that no writer since has managed to improve upon.
Stranger passing by, that here, obedient to their laws, we lie.
The sea has pulled back from Thermopylae over 25 centuries, and the pass has grown wider, though what happened in its narrow version has not changed at all. The bronze statue at the site shows the fallen king exactly as his men remembered him. Helmet back and jaw set and eyes forward. A man who had already made his choice and never once looked back on it. 300 men chose to die in a mountain pass so their civilization could survive. And it did, though history is still searching for the right words to describe what that cost. If this story stayed with you, leave a like and subscribe to Empires Untold.